Hello and welcome to our webinar. Great to have you joining us, where we're going to be taking you through product and market fit testing with paid social. I'm John O'Dogood. I'm a digital growth specialist here at R17 Ventures, and I'm joined by our CEO and founder, Rafael Arona. And together we're going to be taking you through how you can find your MVP and analyze demand. And it really is such an interesting topic that I certainly hope that you're going to garner a whole lot of value from. Before we get started, though, just a bit of an introduction to who we are, who R17 is. We are a leading digital agency. We specialize in performance marketing, and we help clients across the globe to ultimately achieve their growth KPIs and their targets, to increase their market share, as well as to dominate in their selected markets. And we do this through holistic omni-channel digital marketing that really is performance-driven, meaning that we align ourselves with our clients' goals, which ultimately means our remuneration is based on our performance. If we underperform, plain and simple, we're underpaid. If we achieve, we get what is a usual agency fee. And if we exceed, we get a performance bonus on top, meaning that every step of the way, we are fully aligned with our clients. And in addition to this, we are also investors. We have more than 10 digital businesses. So beyond just, doing digital marketing and performance marketing for our clients, we do it for our own businesses. So anything that we recommend to our own clients is something we ourselves would do with our own money, which is, I guess, something that you don't ordinarily come across when you come into contact with agencies. But it's also given us the opportunity to play with things like market testing and finding the demand when we're looking at going into a new business and into a new direction. We take a holistic, data-driven approach to digital, and we really do have a strong hunger to see our clients exceed their goals and hit their goals. And I guess ultimately, we do this from our 3 offices. We have a head office in Zurich. We've got another one in Berlin, as well as a big operations office in Cape Town in South Africa. And over and above that, we are also Meta business partners, Google partners, Klaviyo partners, Shopify partners. So ultimately, we've got the resume of partnerships, and we are one of those teams that you can really trust with your brand. And we've really helped numerous brands. I think at last check, revenue that we've driven annually is around 100 million for our clients. We've got about 60 odd clients, just over 50 staff across the 3 cities. So we really are doing some big things, and we're starting to see even more so in these tough economic times that our service is even more valued by our clients, because we're able to still try and keep that revenue coming in, even though things are a bit tougher in current circumstances. But I guess that's just a bit of an introduction to who R17 is, while we've waited for a few additional people to enter the webinar. Welcome if you have just joined us. We're now going to I guess move into why it is important, knowing which product will perform best before you produce it, and using social media ads. And I guess this is something that Rafi and I have discussed at length. Rafi, I mean, you were saying to me just the other day, it's so important to know if you've got traction before you pour tons of money into an idea, into a business.
Thanks a lot, Jonah, for the great intro. I agree. I think the whole point of using that strategy is really to reduce your financial risk as early as possible, meaning you can, through social ads, you have direct exposure to your consumers, right? And you can kind of test whatever variable you're keen on testing in your business to figure out, is it good or is it not good, or is variant A better than variant B? And I think what we try to do with that service, we use it a lot in our own, let's say, company building venture space, but from time to time we offer it also to clients, is on the MVP side, you have a business model idea, and you actually test your business model before you start over investing in that business, kind of as an MVP. Pretty much you sell your product before it even exists. You can do it in the retail space with all sorts of packaging stuff. We often have the question, okay, from retail companies that sell in store, in physical retail, okay, is packaging A better than B? Should it be yellow, blue, or green, or whatever? And a way to figure that out is to just show the products to a real customer and see how they react. And I think the last one is product market fit whenever it comes to pricing, to USPs, to how to position the product. So you can see there's so many variables that usually are, or let's say pre-social media times have been in somewhat of an uncertainty. I mean, you could do market research and so on, but I think it's always a different story if you ask people, do you like A or B more, or if you actually make them buy A or B. It's a whole different story if someone puts out the credit card in an online store and actually pays for a product versus just saying, I like red more than yellow. And that's kind of that whole approach we try to do with that.
And I think we're actually going to touch on that next when we talk about Beniva Black. I mean,
was I already a bit too quick? Yeah.
No, but I mean, when it came to Beniva Black, your first company that you started and you later sold to the Guido Group, you did market research, and yet it didn't pan out. And I think that kind of ties us into how we learned the hard way.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, what we try to do is, as a first step, we try to analyze, let's say, the search demand on Google and on Amazon to somewhat try to quantify, okay, is a product going to be, is the likelihood of success of a product bigger or less bigger based on search demand, competition, click prices, and so on. But we absolutely failed. I mean, we just launched products that no one wanted. And in e-commerce, it becomes then quite capital intense, especially if you're the producer of the product, because I mean you have minimum order quantities or production quantities and so on. So what we then did is kind of we built the testing methodology where we actually pre-sold the products to real customers before we even launched it, and through that we could mitigate financial risk, and we could just increase the likelihood of launching many more successful products without having to invest, and that's kind of where this whole idea came up for the first time.
I've got to ask though, so you spent half your capital specifically in this case on a beauty sponge, which you thought was going to revolutionize the world, and then it didn't. So what did you end up doing with the sponges?
I mean, I guess the honest answer is what you usually do. You box these products into a bundle, into whatever discounted bundle with other products that are maybe a bit more in demand, and get rid of it like that. But yeah, it's exactly the thing, you know. Very often as business owners or in companies, you believe a lot in your own product and you think, okay, this is now really going to change the world. This is, everyone wants it, but you need to be very, very driven to listen as carefully and as quickly as you can to what the actual customer wants, and then through paid social you can do that. So this is kind of the first story. And if you move to the next slide, funny enough, we came across with exactly the same methodology in the gaming space. We have a company that does where we do hyper casual games with influencers, global influencers, and what we learned along the way, also through failure, obviously, it was we produced games that no one wanted. So we worked with influencers, produced the game, had all the costs up front, onboarding the influencer, making storyboards, mock-ups, creating the games, etc., etc. And then no one wanted to play the game. And then we realized that the gaming industry is actually pretty much, in to use football terms, the Champions League of how to test things, because in the hyper casual world, they first test only click-through rate, then they test cost per installs, then they test retention, then they test monetization, and then they test scalability before they even really start investing into a game. And only if you have hit, let's say, good KPIs on all these, good numbers on all these KPIs, they actually start investing into the game. So we have kind of the e-commerce world to let's say minimize stock issues, and then you have the gaming where you do it on a whole other level with various different KPIs. Because the thing is, you know, if you test on a CPI, so that means you can actually acquire customers at a reasonable rate. But if then retention is not good, meaning that the people play the game only once or only twice, the whole game is worth nothing, or you need to further improve the game. And why the gaming industry specifically is so ideal to test it, because compared to any other business model, you have instant feedback immediately. Because if you send traffic from TikTok or Facebook or Google or whatever into the App Store, the person can download the game instantly. So you have the conversion tracked instantly. Then usually what happens, the person doesn't need to wait like in e-commerce 3-4 days until the parcel is at home, then packing out the goods, then maybe using it only a couple of days later. So in gaming, you download the game and you start playing it pretty much instantly. So and in lead generation, it's in any case in B2B or B2C lead generation, it takes weeks until you have actual customer feedback. Where in gaming, you have it instantly, and that's why I think they've developed these a bit more sophisticated kind of testing models. And that's our story too in the gaming. And based on these two, we just learned that it's quite a good thing to do, to test things before to invest too much.
I think if we look at the 3 steps to our market research framework, and I think specifically when we're looking at testing new products, packages, or if a product's going to work, there are really kind of 3 steps that come into effect here. And the first one, I guess, is being able to Photoshop packaging, products, claims, business models, being able to really highlight your offering as if it's a tangible thing, as if it really exists. And we've touched on this before, but you want to get those real results out of your consumers or your prospective consumers. The second is building a landing page or a Shopify store that you can then test the above in. I mean, you ultimately need a destination that you can send traffic to, and you also want to make sure that it has some kind of good look and feel, because I guess you could go the cheap and nasty way of putting together, and my apologies to anyone who's on WooCom, but you could put a cheap and nasty WooCom together pretty quickly, but from a design perspective, you just don't get the design that you're looking for, and that could also be part of your journey problem, that you get the click-throughs, but then all of a sudden people aren't buying. So you want to try and make it as close to the real process as possible. And I think tools like Shopify, which really put design usability first, really does help significantly. I mean, I was reading an article on Shopify and how they've decided how certain fields are, especially in the checkout process. And apparently they tested 1,000 different variables, and they found this one is the one that works best, their core checkout, because I mean, to them it's business. They need to keep merchants using them, and so
it's not by accident.
Having that great user interface is certainly important. And then the third part is building adverts on your social platforms, so your Facebook, Instagram, so the Meta family ultimately, as well as TikTok, using that Photoshop material and directing your consumers to the relevant landing page or Shopify store. And then you get two kind of points here. Rafi, I don't know if you want to talk through the 2 options. Once I am, as a prospective consumer, have seen the product, I've visited the landing page, I'm now going to try and purchase. So we've got 2 options here.
Yeah, totally. I think you made a brilliant point, John, before, where you said it's about really coming as close as possible to the real world process, as if the business or the product or whatever you would test would be already in the market. That's why I would always go with option 1, because again, it comes down to the point, it's a different story. A consumer or a prospect takes out his credit cards and actually buys the product, or just subscribes to a landing page or whatever. So I would always obviously prefer the option 1 here. Option 2 is essentially you collect leads or prospects and then kind of build your business viability on them. Then I have an add-on to your point number 3. Why we use Meta and not Google, for example? Because one would think, okay, well, if you have already search demand for a product, let's say you want to test different supplements, I mean, you could also run Google search or Performance Max or so on these given keywords. But the thing is, it's much, so essentially, if our hypothesis is always on Google, you will get the sales pretty much in anywhere, right? Because the demand is there. It's pretty, I mean, you just need to outbid your competitors, and you either pay higher or lower click price, and then essentially higher or lower conversion rate. But usually, if you have a product, we know it's going to work on Google to a certain degree. Maybe it's profitable, maybe unprofitable, but it's hard to even control that. That's why we start with the performance channels that actually would make the difference if you have a success, if you want to build a successful business. Because with Google, you only come that far. And if you really want to scale and drive growth, you need social, or you need push channels to really push your product out. And that's why we start with Facebook and Instagram, because we know if it works there, then it has really a point to exist. It's kind of the reason.
So there you go. I mean, sell the product and then instantly refund the people, or collect the subscribers. Again, like we say, sell the product, which I think moves certainly into the next point. And Rafi, I mean, you've said this a number of times now. I mean, the fact that actions do speak louder than words. I mean, there's a big difference between asking someone to make if they would make a purchase, and then making a purchase. And I think often this is where market research, or at least traditional market research, fails a little bit. You know, we could do a survey in the office here today and say, you know, would you buy this? And people say, oh, I'd buy it. But if we sent them the link and we send them an ad for it, would they buy it? It's easy to say yes. It's not as easy to spend your own money.
Yeah, totally. And I think then, you know, if you actually go for purchases or pre-order or whatever, you can also then build your business plan, because I mean, what I see on a daily basis, and it happens also to myself, you build a financial forecast. Okay, well, you say you start month A, month 1, 2, 3, and so on. And you always, or at least it happens to me, you calculate your own numbers so pretty that the business case looks appealing, but it's completely guessing. If you plan with a customer acquisition cost of 50 versus, let's say, on a consumer product, whatever, supplements, 50 versus 75, it's a different story for the business if your customer acquisition cost is 20-30% higher. And if you test these things, you get a much higher accuracy on how the business is going to look later down the line, even if you do the business, because you need to capitalize it differently, you need to plan it differently, etc., etc. So it gives you so much value to know this information upfront.
Completely. I think there's also some added insights that you can get. So, I mean, obviously beyond just learning about how the market reacts to your products or your packaging, or your claims, your business models, etc. I mean, you can also gain further insights, which can then be used for future products or service development and marketing efforts. I mean, I think number one is, you know, your consumers. Who are they? I mean, you can gain a look at the demographics, the regions, and more. And I know iOS 14, now iOS 17, the big looming one at the moment, and various other data security things are making it a bit more difficult for us to get some of this data, but a lot of it is being anonymized, so we can still view it. And I guess, you know, the data that we are getting is still reliable. You can see what are those demographics, where are those countries or regions or cities, before you also put out a huge media spend. I think that's the other mistake that we do. You think, okay, I've got a hot product, I'm going to just, you know, flog it. And then all of a sudden you're spending money in regions that aren't necessarily going to be purchasing. So, you know, also just being proactive in knowing who your market is, so that when you're ready to fully go to market, you can put your money where it needs to be. I think the other one is tests, you know, getting answers to testing variables. What packaging do they prefer? Is there a claim that outperforms others? I mean, you can have the identical packaging or an identical, you know, landing page, but have two different claims for a product. What is the one that resonates best with you know, potential clients? What are the common denominators amongst the winning products? You're able to really strap into those and get into them immediately. And I think the other thing that we've also touched on is pricing. You know, learn more about the price elasticity of the demand. Are people willing to pay more for your product? You know, you can maybe have different price points that you're sending people to, and see which one sticks. Or are you pricing yourself completely out of the market?
That's a very good one, the pricing indeed. We've done that numerous times, especially in the consumer space. It's so much about how your product is positioned, because the range, at least where I come from beauty and cosmetics and supplements and so on, I mean, you get face creams for 5 euros or Swiss francs, and you get them for 300. So there's a massive range, and figuring out where your product can fit is a massive advantage to figure out before you really go into the market and say, okay, this is not my product, this is the price, etc. Yeah, good point, John.
Awesome. I think lastly, I mean, it's just about, you know, harnessing our expertise. So, I mean, we are a digital partner. We offer full service testing solutions on social media. So, you know, we're able to help on all the things we've spoken about. And I think that's just super important. You may have thought, oh, great ideas, guys. Now what? And you know, I'd like to do this for my business, but now what? And yeah, so I'm just letting you know we can do it for you. You know, we've got an incredible creative strategist team that can help with, you know, things like photoshopping of packaging. I mean, we can literally help you with that. You know, products, claims, business models. We can also design and develop those landing pages, those Shopify stores, etc. for testing. And of course, naturally, as a digital agency, as a performance agency, we can run the ads and social media for you, create that strategy, that content production, those campaign builds, those optimizations. And then I think the most important thing, and ultimately why you'd be doing an exercise like this, is to get results and see what those results are. So we would also provide you with reporting that outlines what the performance was, as well as key findings and insights. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Rafi?
Yeah, I have one thing actually. If any of you is also at the very MVP stage of a business and just wants to test out the business case, we're very open to sometime or to co-invest into this MVP phase. We've done that recently a couple of times where we had different entrepreneurs. Everyone put let's say money on the table to pre-finance this testing phase. And then we figure out, is it a viable business to even build? One thing we did that failed now, because that also happens obviously, probably even more than the successful, much more. We wanted to try a pasta subscription, so we wanted to build our own pasta brand, make it a bit fancier, prettier than the classical Barilla, and wanted to sell it as subscriptions. So every second month you get a new type of pasta directly from Italy and so on. And we figured before we actually buy stock and really equip the company and hire people, we want to test the business model. So there were 3 entrepreneurs together, so two entrepreneurs, and then us as a partners, our 17. We all financed it equally, and then tested the whole thing. Built up a Shopify store, run ads, and unfortunately the customer acquisition cost was way too high. That we thought, okay, that's not gonna be a viable business. The demand is not there. So if any of you listening now has similar ideas, we're always keen to not only to help, but also to have skin in the game and see what we can do.
Fantastic. And I guess that leads me to the final slide, which is if you want the answers, or if you want to get in touch with us, you can feel free to reach out to us, phone number, email, website. We're more than happy to have a conversation with you. And thank you so much for joining us for the webinar today. I think it's been super insightful. Rafi, thank you for your insights. I mean, they really are also phenomenal, especially from an entrepreneurial perspective. Getting them directly from the entrepreneur himself, I think is super valuable. And yeah, thank you also for watching.
Thanks, guys.
We hope that you'll join us for our next webinar soon. And until next time, take care.